Hey everyone, welcome to a real fly fishing product showcase video today. I just wanted to take you through our origin range of fly reels so that you know where it started and where it is currently in 2025. So back in 2020 we launched the Origin 1, this particular model, and it was a fully machined in-house design that we developed and tested right here in South Africa, and it really helped to set up real fly fishing as a brand and paved the way for the Origin 2s and where our whole design ethos was headed. So the Origin brought with it a completely sealed drag. It was good for freshwater and saltwater, and it was available in a 456 model like this one, as well as a 789. We still have spare spools and parts for these reels, so we really look after our clients, and our products have a really long shelf life. So if you do have one of these, or you're looking at an Origin reel, unfortunately these are sold out in the original ones, but you can still get parts like I said. So that's the Origin 1, and it served us through until about 2022, 2023, where we then launched the Origin 2. So this particular model over here is the Origin 2, that one over there. This is my own personal reel. It's been through the works, and it's been a lot of demo days, so it does have a few scratches and dings, but it's still going strong all these years later. So the Origin 2 was a really big upgrade in terms of overall design language and usability. With the boom in Euronymphing, if I can call it that, a lot of guys switched over, and a lot of other guys were apprehensive about potentially buying a dedicated reel, particularly for Euronymphing. So with the Origin 2, we took that to heart and we said, how can we make it adaptable for people who want the best of both worlds? So they want to have a still water reel, but they also want to have a Euronymphing reel. So the Origin 2 brought with it a lot of different changes. So the 345 model, which was particularly popular in the United States, this model is great for all of your sort of 9-foot length rods, as it just looks proportionate, and I think it looks really cool when it is on a 9-foot rod. So what are some of the key features in comparison to the Origin 1? A standout feature, and something that you should be looking for on any more premium fly reel, is a full frame that runs all the way around. What a full frame does is it eliminates tippet pass-through entirely. So tippet pass-through is where your tippet, like this reel, and we have some tippet over here, should be running over here at the top of your reel for right-hand retrieve. Unfortunately, over the course of a day or hours, it ends up being at the back of your fly reel, which means it's in the wrong place. It's dragging over the frame of your reel, potentially making it weaker, and it's just frustrating to have to deal with that. So a full frame completely eliminates that entirely. And as a Euronymphing reel, it's something that you should be looking for, as you will be using very light tippet most of the time, as well as potentially fishing with nylon in your fingers, meaning that you're going to have a lot of tippet pass-through. So when you are looking for a more dedicated, even still water reel or Euronymphing reel, try and make sure that it's got a full frame. It also adds more strength, and once you've fished with one of these with a full frame, you won't want to go back, as it takes out a lot of that niggliness that you find yourself sort of fiddling with on the water. So the Origin 2, if you compare it to the Origin 1, was also a very thin side profile, which means you've got the less sort of tensional or torsional movement on your forearm, meaning less fatigue over a day's fishing. So again, this is the more modern approach of having a nice thin side profile. And by having a thin side profile, obviously this means you have less capacity. So what we need to do is we need to make the frame bigger, which means a slightly bigger arbor, which all in all helps with retrieval and works hand in hand with the approach that most guys want today, which is a quick retrieval that's nice and lightweight. So Origin 2 across the board, whereas the 345, the 567, or the 789, they were all good for freshwater and saltwater, and each of them had distinctive characteristics that set them apart from the other models. So the 345 was focused for your lightweight rods, from sort of 2 weight through until about a 5 weight, particularly up to about 9 foot in length. Your 567 model
was great for your urine nymphing rods, particularly because of the size of the diameter and because we developed a special urine nymphing spool for the frame. So you didn't have to buy a new reel, you just had to get a new spool, pop it in your existing frame, and hey, you've got a pretty cool urine nymphing reel. So you'll see the difference. Your arbor is much larger on the urine nymphing reel, this particular one, versus the normal arbor over here, and backing capacity on your standard reel. So you don't need all that on your urine nymphing reel because you're fishing with the really thin lines, usually about 0.55 millimeters in diameter, and backing, you don't need a ton of backing. So that made the 567 very adaptable, and it really worked well with the boom in 10-foot rods that we saw, 10 foot and longer. So those sort of worked well in that category. Then you've got the 789, which is this particular reel here. So it featured a different drag system. It's an actual waterproof drag, so you can fish it completely submerged, and it gave you 25 pounds of stopping power. So a lot more than these lighter reels, but on the lighter reels, as much as we like to checkbox things when we look for different specs, try and think about how you're going to be using your reel. So if you're fishing a urine nymphing reel, it's highly unlikely that you need 12 pounds of stopping power because you're most likely fishing 4 and 5x tippet. So anything more than that is essentially wasted. So rather than focusing on stopping power like on saltwater reels, let's focus on what a lot of people will see and hear is called startup inertia. So what is startup inertia on a drag system? So startup inertia is basically the friction or the inconsistency of when your drag starts. So a lot of older fly reels, you'll find that initially there's a slight jerk and then it's smooth. The Origin 1 isn't such an example, but I'm just trying to illustrate a point. So startup inertia is essentially what we want. Startup inertia, essentially what we want is we want a very consistent or linear movement across the drag. So pulling the drag out, it should be as smooth as possible. If you find that there's any jerking or inconsistency and then smoothness, avoid that fly reel because that means it's got startup inertia. So on the Origin 2s, the Origin and the Origin 2.5, startup inertia is basically eliminated with our new drag system. So you don't have to worry about that, and you've got more than enough stopping power for most situations on the 345 and the 567. I think it's in the region of about 8 to 12 pounds depending on the model. So plenty stopping power. Like I said, big model, you're looking at 25 pounds. Okay, so fast forwarding through till 2025, we've just done the latest revision on the Origin 2. I haven't called it an Origin 3, I've called it a 2.5. That is because it is still interchangeable with Origin 2, but it brings with it some small design changes that we made based on your feedback, and it's something I just wanted to touch on quickly. As a company, as a brand, I really enjoy and focus on transparency. So by you providing really good feedback and telling us where you found a particular scenario that could help us improve our products, it means the world to me, and it means we can develop something better for everyone. So if you have feedback, if you have any sort of ideas, let us know. There's no such thing as a bad idea, it's just how we implement it. So what is the difference between the Origin 2 and the 2.5? Immediately what you will notice is the inclusion of a spool hoop. So running all the way on the inside here, that's a completely open design like that model where you don't have any hoop running around, and on the new model you will see that there's a hoop all the way around. So what does a hoop do? So a hoop unfortunately does add weight, so the new reels are heavier, but the hoop means that you can put your backing under a lot of pressure and you don't have to worry about potentially damaging your spool. So as a super light fly reel, these are great, but you do run the risk, unfortunately, of over tightening your backing when installing it initially, and when it gets wet it swells, which means your frame and your spool are under a lot of pressure. So with a hoop, you don't have to worry about that as much because it provides internal pressure like that, so you don't have to worry. Some of the other design changes that we made were based on feedback again, and it's more about structural rigidity than actually changing the overall design. Like I said, the 345 and the 567 are interchangeable. So new to old, you can put spools, frames, whichever way you like it. So if we have a look on the side, you'll notice that there's an additional strut over here compared to the original. That is added strength. On the bottom, I've adjusted and added another strut so that when you put your reel down or when you bump it on the rocks, again, it's there for strength. One of the other more subtle changes is a stepping system on the inside of this frame. So I've added an extra step over here, which adds more strength from side impact should you fall down, again based on feedback from clients. One of the other changes that we made, we personally didn't have any of these issues, but there were one or two guys that have dropped their reels in their house, not even getting to the water, and unfortunately bending the reel foot because of the very light nature of it. So we did a lot of machining work on that to keep it as light as possible. We've moved back to a full solid design on the new one, so that if you do drop it, you don't run the risk of bending it. You really have to drop this hard now to bend it. So again, small changes, but it's all based on your guys' feedback. Some of the other more aesthetic designs that we've done is we've moved to a more homogeneous design across all of the models. So the 345, the 567, and the 789 all look a lot more similar now. So this is the 345, that is the 567, identical except for diameter, and then we've got the 789. If you have a look at the frame and the spool design, they are quite similar. Obviously, it's got some extra struts here, but the overall design is very similar, and it really creates more cohesion, I think, across the Origin 2 range. So be on the lookout for these. We've just launched them. We've got some really new cool colors. We've got deep purple, my personal favorite, and then your guys' favorite is what we like to call midnight, and I think it captures the essence of what it is like to look up at the stars at night when you're out at your favorite fishing spot and seeing that dark, deep blue, black color in the night sky. So midnight, there's a couple of those left still. Have a look at them. And yeah, let's chat a little bit about the 789. This is completely different because they use a different drag system. So you've got 25 pounds of waterproof drag here. It's good for salt water, obviously fresh water, no problem. And the reason I put these in their own category right now to chat about it is because these are no longer interchangeable. I had to make some small design changes, and with that meant that the spools no longer fit. So if you do have an Origin 2 789, make sure you choose that particular spool and not the new 2.5 spool, as you will find that it won't fit correctly. The diameters are the same, the actual widths are the same, everything's the same, it's just the internal changes that I made. So let's have a look at those changes on the inside. What I did was I added an extra frame support on the inside to give us more strength. So you'll notice the old model, this outer frame over here is quite a bit thinner, if we look at it like that, and on the inside there's an extra step, so hence why they no longer fit. So what I did was, also based on your feedback, if we look at the bottom of the reels, you'll see that they are completely different on the bottom. This is for the guys who like to really strip their line fast when fishing on the flats for those tailing bonefish, and you have a split second to try and get to them. So you'll find that these struts, as nicely positioned as they were, they did hinder your stripping sort of ability straight down like that. You'd have to strip more at a bit of a diagonal like that. So with the new model and the way that we've moved this strut is you can pull your line straight down. Once your line is also locked in, it's going to be at the top here, so it means you don't have to stress about it. So additional strength on the side here when compared to the original one. So overall we've just beefed it up and just cleaned up the design as a whole to make it that much neater. So that's the update over there. Everything else remains the same drag system. You don't have to worry about salt water getting in. Extremely low maintenance as it's a sealed system. So I haven't even serviced mine in over 3 years of use, and I pretty much try not to wash it to just see how long it will last in the worst case scenario. So the Origin 2s are all about adaptability and finding the right reel for the right rod. So whether you're a seasoned stillwater angler, stepping into Euro nymphing, love your light dry fly fishing, or enjoy some heavy salt water stalking on the flats, we've got the reel for you. So drop us a comment, let us know what you think. If you have any questions, we take it to heart. I know these reels inside and out. I designed them, I tested them, and I developed them right here. So let us know if you have any questions. Thanks so much for giving us some of your time, and I look forward to sharing some more videos like this as we go into more depth on the actual engineering side of the reels, what to look out for on materials, as well as similar videos that I'm going to be going through as an overall informative series on materials in fly rods and taking the clutter out of what you need to look for and what you don't need to look for and what you should be paying based on what is inside a product. I know what they all cost, so let's take all the clutter out of it and just have information so we can make the best decision possible. Thanks so much, guys, and I'll catch you out on the water.